Good evening. I'm Reverend Ronald Wright, Executive Director of Justice Seekers Texas, and we are here. I'm joined here today with Brother Joseph Bugyenou, whose son Isaac was murdered at 7-Eleven on May of 2013. And Isaac is one of several black men who have been murdered at 7-Eleven, and the reason why is because of the lack of security at the 7-Eleven. On tomorrow here in Dallas, which will be August the 21st, we will be having a rally and a protest in front of the 7-Eleven Incorporation. We've tried to contact 7-Eleven and sit down and talk with them where we could sit down and address some of the issues, but they have refused to get back in touch with us and declined. Well, I won't say refused, they declined to get back in touch with us. So now we have a family for security, and the president is Joseph Bugyenou, whose son Isaac was murdered. That being said, Joseph?
Yeah, well, it is very sad that when somebody gets hurt, when somebody gets killed in a free country like America, corporate 7-Eleven doesn't care. And they want to point it outright that this is not only sad, it's shameful and unacceptable.
How long did Isaac work for 7-Eleven?
Isaac had worked for 7-Eleven for a period of over 2.5 years.
2.5 years?
Yeah.
And on the death of Isaac, what did 7-Eleven do in regards to sympathizing with what took place, or did they contact the family and say anything to the family? What did 7-Eleven Corporation do?
We have never had anything from 7-Eleven other than denial and the ignorance of the fact that he's dead and he was kidnapped from in front of their main door after working a second shift in a place he had worked for over that period.
They never showed no sympathy towards the loss of your son?
Not at all.
Okay. Let me ask you also, you are a former employee of 7-Eleven. How secure are 7-Eleven stores?
7-Eleven has security gaps within their own setting because basically the camera is focused on the register where you work and where you receive your money and deposit it, and at the gas pumps where people will come in and pump their gas and go. There's nothing catered for the parking lot and their surroundings of the premises where the customers would interact with them.
So unlike a Walmart or any other store, there's no security on that lot. A customer can very well come to 7-Eleven and something very well could happen to a customer.
Well, as I said, such security is not in place on most of their premises. And in this particular case, for the place where my late son worked, that was the particular case. They didn't have a camera to see incidents, anything happening in front of their premises.
Give us a brief summary of what took place that night, to your knowledge, of what happened to Isaac.
When Isaac finished his second shift, a few minutes after 10 p.m., he clocked out and stepped out of the main entrance, where his car had just been parked. As he was entering, 4 armed men who had been on the premises of 7-Eleven without even the knowledge of the manager who was on duty, kidnapped him, took him away. 1 block away, they robbed him, shot him dead, and threw his body on the street. So
the people who committed this hideous murder, and they have been captured, and I know most of the family, they all going to be charged with capital murder, in which it was. But the men were on the property of 7-Eleven. There was no way 7-Eleven would have knew. I mean, no video showed the men hiding. Apparently, they were hiding around the corner on the side of the building. There was no indication showing where these men were standing there waiting on Isaac to come out of the store.
As a matter of fact, if at all there was such a security measure in place, the manager who was still in the store would have seen them on their video camera. If there was a security guard on standby, he would have been able to see them outside or prevent the act from happening. But because there is nothing like that in such a situation, they took the day, They came onto the property with their preconceived plan, waited for their victim, who could have been anybody, and in this case was my late son, kidnapped him, took him and did all what they wanted.
Let me ask you.
And the right place they chose, where security is relaxed, is 7-Eleven in this case.
Let me ask you a question. How many people have been killed over the last 2 or 3 years working with 7-Eleven?
Clear cases I know of in the area and the county of Dallas are 3 employees.
What race were those employees?
All of them were black.
All black employees
Were black employees.
murdered at 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven showed given no response or sympathetic response to any of these employees being killed.
No response, because the only response which is acceptable and which is logically feasible would be to change the way they operate, the way their security system is set up, for the lives of their employees and the safety of the customers who would interact with them, but nothing like that has happened. More so, the third fact is that most of those killed are immigrant, young, energetic men who are new to this country, which promises them a lot.
Now, unfortunately, we're not, 7-Eleven doesn't shoot the gun or pulls the knives out, but they are responsible for the safety of their employees and definitely the safety of their customers. Now, tomorrow's rally, the purpose of this rally is to
Let the public know and let the management of 7-Eleven know that there is lack of security in all and most of the stores of 7-Eleven, and we need that issue addressed positively, because we cannot afford to live in fear. We cannot afford to die, to keep losing people in a situation which is supposed to be guaranteed with security.
Do you think there's a disparity in stores in the southern sector versus stores in the northern sector as far as security is concerned?
Indeed, I've seen that, because areas up north Dallas, such a thing never happens. Such a thing is very rare, just because there are cameras in all over the premises, and they seem to be having more concern with such stores in such locations. Elsewhere, South Dallas, East Dallas, and some areas, for some reason, and this is for 7-Eleven to explain, security is laxed, and the crime rate is increasing, and people are dying. And the examples of those who have died, nothing in North Dallas.
Well, as a matter of fact, with that being said, since Isaac was murdered on last year, in January there was one man murdered. In February there was another murder of 7-Eleven employees because of this lack of security. And we're not, at the end of the day, all stores are to provide security for their customers. So Families for Security is going to put a protest on tomorrow, and that protest is going to end and in front of the 7-Eleven Corporation, demanding that 7-Eleven sit down and talk with us and provide better security with their stores, regardless if it's franchise or incorporation. So Justice Seekers Texas is going to align themselves up with Families for Security, and we're going to protest and send a message out to the citizens in Dallas and all over the United States that 7-Eleven has to be more responsible when it comes to the security of their employees and by all means their customers. And even though a lot of foreigners work for the 7-Elevens, it's almost behooves me to think that's the reason why, because of lack of security. And if that's the case, we're going to let 7-Eleven know, get security and safety in your stores, or we're going to ask people not to shop at 7-Eleven. That being said, I want to thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I would conclude by saying that America is a free country. We come to this country with a lot of hopes and expectations. One most important thing we need to safeguard, we need to retain, is the freedom of having life and living it freely. However, the death of one, the death of two, the death of three has not given 7-Eleven sense that there is something wrong. This is unacceptable. 7-Eleven must be accountable, responsible, and stand to change such a situation. Short of that, we cannot live in a free country under a state of fear.
Well, our hearts and prayers go out to you and your family for the tragic loss of your son. And we will be protesting tomorrow. And we thank God that we can come together, because silence, as you know, helps the tormentor and not the tormented. And so we're going to be a voice tomorrow. And I thank God for you standing up. I know a lot of the other families are still sympathetically hurting from it, but you chose to take a stand, and this is on behalf of Isaac. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And all we ask for is change of the status quo.
Okay. So the rally is going to be at 4 o'clock tomorrow. From 4 to 5:30. It's going to be starting at Ross Avenue, down Roth, into in front of the 7-Eleven Corporation, which is on Roth Street. So it's going to be a little less than a half a mile protest. But the point of it is that we will stop in front of Roth Street, and the corporation, in front of the corporation is a 7-Eleven store as well. And so we'll be doing our press conference right there.
And we send them that message, which is clear and seeking for action.